Hey friends, Chapter 1, SHTF, on a microeconomical level. So, since Part 11, road trip, check. Permanent residency, no. 3-year contract, no. Rebuilding the truck while out in the prairies before coming back to the Maritimes, yes. But the rebuild went haywire. So, in very short terms, we have turned an oil burner into a non-runner. Long story, I sold the truck to the rebuilder in a gentleman's agreement situation and walked away from it, pocketing half of the loss. Next, end of March, I got fired. See the clip of my epic road trip coming back from the prairies to the Maritimes. Thirdly, I'm still a temporary resident, because all of this express entry stuff on federal level went haywire due to 3 factors by now. Factor number 1, in the first place, the company didn't qualify, being a lease operator and not an asset-based carrier, so out the window. Issue number 2, I didn't qualify, basing my travel history on my former offshore work not being congruent with current Canadian requirements in terms of police certificates, places visited, places worked at and taxes paid in, which obviously in an offshore setup is not congruent. Thirdly, on another attempt, my equivalence of my uni degree was older than 5 years. So that went out the window. Quite a ride, eh? Chapter 2, learning curve. For all you people out there who may be in a similar or same situation. In a very condensed way, okay, since 2022 to 2025, my learning curve is be quick, because the goalposts move. Quite frequently there are this and that detail within the procedures here in Canada that may have been modified, especially since the last election. So the open door policy is over and points have changed and requirements have changed and all sorts of things. Another learning curve, do not work with agencies. They're no better than you can read online guides and dive into it yourself, but the time requirement to do so is hours and hours and hours of reading up on online guides on how to exactly do it the way that their artificial intelligence on IRCC level reads and understands what you feed it. In my case, 2 applications did not work out, which I personally blame on this scenario. So, scenario 1, travel history. Obviously, in my past, as you know by now, I have a citizenship, a residency, a tax residency, a flag state, and a physical workplace on boats and more recently trucks. None of them are the same. Now try to explain this to an algorithm that is not triple checked by a human being in the background. Next learning curve. If you do go a sponsorship way, make sure, double sure, triple sure that the company you're working for is A, legit, B, professionally run, C, asset based, and D, within the same province that you are applying for. Although I was told that interprovincial setups are no problem in terms of trucking and long haul and this and that and the other, forget it. It triggers a whole bunch of problems that I'm now actually just sorting out in 2025. Next learning curve. A big plus and thank you to despite all my rants, very professional, very nice and very helpful people in the authorities that I have to deal with now. So, in terms of provincial level, fantastic. I got a whole list of things to do that we will actually go down to look at in the next chapter. In terms of getting out of this company-specific work permit, I have personally driven to 2 CBSA spots. So, having said so, flagpoling or on the spot changing or extending your work permit is no longer possible since December 2024. Everything has to be done online and through the online procedure, unless you have 1 out of 5 reasons that do not apply to me, such as like sexual harassment, being beaten up at work and all that kind of jazz. So, no, I've been treated well within the limits of the contract we've signed. Next learning curve, opening a bracket on that subject. Any bonuses that the company receives but may not be part of your contract are obviously not for you. So in my scenario, the company got the sign-on bonus, the company got the provincial bonus, the company got my work, and a little kickback on the provincial level for having brought in people doing work that no one else wants to do. I got the salary, full stop. So a deal is a deal, you know, you may think of that what you want, but it is what it is, that's what I signed. So, bracket closed. Next learning curve, a consistent paper flow. For people who have like a normal life, I don't think this should be a problem. You know, you grow up, you do this, you get educated, you have an equivalency and you move on and you document it all and that's it. For traveling people and traveling professions like truckers, seafarers, journeymen, very, very, very hard to do. And it obviously has all to be translated into and or English and French. Next learning curve. Make sure you have a good financial cushion. The processing time in my case for employment insurance, since I am officially not allowed to work until I get this paperwork issue fixed, took 16 weeks all up. So, you know, that's 16 weeks that you have to live out of pocket from your savings, because otherwise you simply perish. There is no social thingy network where you're being, you know, carried on silk hands like in maybe other countries. So it helps. Another thing, real estate. Part of my learning curve, I obviously purchased my property in January 2019. Pre-pandemic, you know the story, blah, blah. Since January 2023, temporary residents are no longer allowed to purchase property in Canada. So I've mentioned that in my previous videos. Didn't really concern me. I did look into having a secondary residence in Saskatchewan at the time. Kinda let go of it because that whole immigration thing just didn't get off the ground. There are workarounds in certain provinces and certain work setups, but generally as a temporary resident you are being milked. Think about it. You have to have a job. So any income you achieve first is taxed. Then you get the money. Then you have to consume, where again you're being heavily taxed. Then with what's left over you have to pay rent. That again will be taxed. You get my drift. So when I was fired, my first thought is, okay, I pull the plug on interprovincial setup and go home, because A, my property here is paid, I don't owe anything to anybody, I got all my equipment and gear sitting around here, so I can at least do something and work on the property, which I did since I got here in around about-ish May. So I have May, June, July and August to work on my property and in parallel sort out the paperwork. and put the next step in place, which I'm very happy to announce that in the next chapter, ta-da, we have a way forward. Well, friends, it's been quite a ride. Now, besides my rant before, here's the to-do list that I was given by the Nova Scotia Immigration Authority on provincial level. Okay, so in order to add to my pending express entry on federal level, the Nova Scotia provincial nomination, I needed to tick a lot of boxes that haven't been that important beforehand. So, number one, you have to not just own property within the province, you have to physically be within the province for at least 6 months out of the year. You have to have employment within the province, paid and worked within the province full time, being defined as at least 35 hours per week for every week of the year in average. You have to have your language tests within the 2 years of limited validity of them being acknowledged in Canada. You have to have your degrees equivalents within Canada within the maximum of 5 years. You have to be in a sweet spot, really. So, after the trucking hoax, I decided to also look into boats. And I'm super happy to have found a company in Lunenburg that's about 40 minutes drive up the road from here, working on one of their fishing boats for the upcoming season. Now, it's another little moving goalpost. Only since 2023 does Canada more or less automatically endorse MCA licenses. So, the path forward is now, hallelujah, having checked all these boxes, jumped all the hoops, and really looking forward to get happening in a few weeks, starting around September-ish, working on board fishing vessel, 97 GT, so well within the 200 GT range of my license, eventually endorsing my license, learning everything there is to learn about fishing and running that dragger. Yeah, my goal of having a basic subsistent life here in the Canadian Maritimes is finally falling into place. So, I'm really happy about that.